Almost every single week, South Africa is in another problem. It's another big international incident that happens. And for some reason, we seem to be the one country in the world that makes every single decision that is the opposite of what would be good for our country. With growing debt, a shrinking economy, and yes, our economy is in fact shrinking with increased problems with power generation, because yes, Eskom is once again in trouble, with mounting corruption and corruption allegations within the country, with a country that even at home, we have just as many problems. You have EFF members threatening civil war. You have MK members threatening civil war. You have a country that is being torn apart by its own politicians, people like Herman Mashaba and Julius Malema trying their absolute best to drive a wedge between the different races of this country. If anything, South Africa needs a steady hand. The last thing we need right now is to go and rain on other countries' parades. We need the rest of the world. And as much as people like to pretend that we don't need America, the most recent developments out of America should prove to us that this is indeed not true. We were hearing for months how we will find other markets to send our goods to and to export to. We don't need the United States. However, in the last month, we have found out that the South African government has been working overtime to try and get the Americans back to the negotiating table, as the actual tariffs are now finally starting to bite. And we don't have the exact financial results yet for the third quarter of 2025, but I'm almost willing to bet that it does not look good. Now, those of you that will keenly remember back to the now infamous Russian military vessel, I guess you could call it, that docked in Simonstown in South Africa. This was 2021, 2022. I don't know if you guys remember this, but that caused a near meltdown of the rand, as well as incredible problems for South Africa, specifically with the United States. At the time, Europe was still very much sort of keeping to themselves. Well, as it turns out, it's part two of the never-ending soap opera that is South Africa. On Thursday, something very, very weird happened. A blacklisted Russian cargo plane landed heavily loaded in Upington, South Africa, and then departed from Lanseria after it docked there or stopped there to refuel, completely empty. The problem with this plane, it had spent significant amounts of time in Iran. It departed from Tanzania. And while our officials claim that the plane only came to South Africa, and let me read this for you. According to the Department of Transport's spokesperson, Colin Masibi, he said the purpose was to transport general cargo, civilian helicopters, and acrobatic aeroplanes. It must also be noted that the South African government has not blacklisted the operator. Furthermore, we have no knowledge or receipt of any information from any other government that this operator has been blacklisted. Well, eyewitness accounts and people who were there when the plane actually landed in Upington claim something very different. According to the reports there, the massive cargo plane arrived heavily loaded with what sources described as armed weaponry and equipment. Now, there's something very interesting about Upington that a lot of people might not actually know. As City Press reports here, exactly what the cargo to Upington was is not known, although we now know, because we have further sources that actually revealed this, that it was weapons and heavy military equipment. Upington, and especially the Vastrap weapons testing range, was used decades ago for testing South Africa's nuclear weapons. Now, I want to call you guys back to a little earlier in the year when one of our generals went to Iran and effectively pledged a military alliance with Iranian military leadership. At the time, the South African general made it clear that South Africa is going to send a number of our top scientists and science students to Iran, specifically to the Iranian university that deals with nuclear weapon research. This was one of the deals that was going to be made between the South African military and the Iranian military. Shortly after this, there was a massive international incident, as Donald Trump and America took note of this and immediately started asking questions of our government. What the hell are you guys playing at? Iran is not a good country. I want to be very clear on this. Regardless of how you feel about America, you might look at America and think it's the most evil country in the world. I guarantee you, America has nothing on Iran. Iran is a terror. In fact, Iran is so bad that no other country in the Middle East wants a free and powerful Iran. That's why you will consistently find that most of the other Middle Eastern countries support action against Iran, because they all know that every single time Iran gets even a shred of power, they use that to attack and expand their own influence in the Middle East. Not only that, but Iran has an incredible history of killing, slaughtering, and oppressing their own people. That's not even talking about the people that they oppress in the region, and the fact that they have consistently and pretty much without fail said that they want to see the United States completely and utterly destroyed. The fact that the plane is Russian, just to be clear, spent a number of hours or maybe weeks even in Iran, and then arrived at Uppington, very close to our own nuclear testing facilities where we used to test these nuclear weapons. This should send shivers down the spines of just about every single South African. Because if it turns out that Iran has been sending some of its nuclear materials to South Africa to maybe allow South Africa to assemble and build the bombs on Iran's behalf, because there's so many watchdogs keeping an eye on Iran, South Africa would very quickly find itself as a rogue state. And this time, it won't just be the United States that puts sanctions and tariffs on South Africa. It would include Europe, as Europe is also involved in the war against Russia. This will not be good for anyone. But of course, how does the South African government deal with it? Well, it's quite simple. They claim, even though in 2024 already, this Russian airline, I think it's Abakar or something to that effect. Yeah, the aircraft belongs to Moscow-based Abakan Air, which has been blacklisted by the US Treasury in June last year, so in 2024, for transporting Russian military equipment. That, of course, is backed up by sources who claim that it was armed weaponry and equipment that was offloaded in Uppington. And then you have another organization from London that actually blacklisted this particular aircraft or aircraft group, because this group has a history of non-payment. They owe a lot of money to landing or airports around the world, and they continuously can't pay. And here's where things get even more awkward and weird. All of the payment for Abakan Air was handled by a local company. So Abakan Air wasn't even paying for it, but a local company was actually paying for the refueling, the maintenance that had to be done on the plane, and then the plane took off, which makes you really wonder what the hell is actually going on here, and what exactly is the Americans going to do about it? Because America is in an ongoing, almost sort of renewed Cold War with Russia. South Africa has joined the war for some reason. Like, no one understands why we would get involved in this. We're on the bottom of Africa. We're out of the line of fire. We should be an absolutely neutral country in the world. We shouldn't involve ourselves in problems that has nothing to do with us. If the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Americans want to bomb the living hell out of each other, that does not affect us. Right? We're so far away that we should just keep to ourselves. And hey, maybe some of those people can move here if things get too rough, right? We could be a safe haven to the rest of the world. We don't have to get involved. I don't understand why we're continuously getting involved. And this is actually worse than what we saw with the Russian ship, because the Russian ship that landed, we don't have any reports that claim that it was filled with military equipment or that it even had a full cargo hold. Here we have reports that it was absolutely full. The people who helped offload it, or at least sources close to the airport, claimed that it was specifically military equipment and weapons on that plane. So now South Africa is what? Trading in arms with the Russians? Why does South Africa need Russian military equipment? I don't understand. Are we about to go to war with someone? Are we about to join a war against someone? None of this checks out. None of this makes any sense. And then, of course, the South Africans just do what they always do. Claim that, oh, we didn't know. Like, no one's blacklisted this plane. What are you talking about? We have no idea. This is exactly what happened with the general in Iran. As soon as the general got back and the ANC realized, oh, everyone's very angry at us because we said we're actually allies with a terrorist regime, Ramaphosa just went, what general? We don't even have a military here in South Africa. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Because that's sort of always their play. They play ignorant, they play stupid, because they know the rest of the world probably believes them. Because they are pretty stupid at the best of times. But anyways, as always, hit the like if you liked, the dislike if you didn't. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of this story. And specifically, I want to know, what do you guys think is going to happen as a result of this? Remember, South Africa has been able to get away with quite a lot, but every single time you do a new thing, you don't start from zero. You start from wherever you ended up the last time. And at some point, people might just reach the point of going, that's enough. Let's take action now. So I'd love to read your thoughts. A massive shout out and thank you to all of the patrons as well as the YouTube channel members for your continued support on this channel. Thank you so much. To become a member, just hit the join button right below this video or link in the description down below. As always, be good to each other. Be kind to each other. Question everything. And peace.